On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, we're going to get to some excellent listener questions, Kyle, including our confidence level going into this postseason. We'll get to contract talk already. And the hard-hitting question, Simpsons, Family Guy, or American Dad? Let's get to that. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, we will answer that. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. If you want to get in on the conversation, join our subtext. Link is in the show notes below. When you do, chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, and share it on this very podcast. And we do this from time to time, too, with open up the mailbag and get listener questions from our subtext people, like that one. And if you got a lot of if I didn't tell you who that was from, you think you could guess?
Oh, I probably could, just because of the theming.
Yeah.
It's an OG.
Yes.
And every time you say mailbag, I always think of Mr. McFeely from Mr. Rogers. So it's just it's a happy theme.
That's funny. Episode. I never even put those together. That's funny. All right. So where we're going to start, before we get to a question, what we normally do after a game is the morning leftovers. And we took yesterday off. So there's been enough time. Like, I don't want to fully go back and do like a full morning leftover, but there is one thing that's kind of been sticking with me after that game.
The Chris Maselli Colombo, just one more thing.
Yes, one more thing. After that overtime loss to Minnesota. And that is, we go back and listen to that episode. It was a grind of a game, and you're happy you got the point. And I think my thought on it was, my thinking of it is, the team before like the Four Nations break, I don't think would have got even a point.
No, you're right. You're right.
So yes, while like you want to win every game and get 2 points out of every game, I and the team is still gelling of these new guys that are getting acclimated, but they're still playing well while that process is happening and taking place and taking shape. That team went out and played a difficult game, which are going to get difficult games, obviously, and they grinded out a point out of that. And you can, like I said, go backwards. I don't think that happens with the team prior.
No, you're absolutely dead on. And like, we've seen this team before the Four Nations, like, completely, literally, and figuratively unplug. And that wasn't the case in that 1 point Minnesota overtime loss, or shootout loss, honestly. Yeah. Like, they were still around. They didn't disengage. They didn't give up on the game. It just didn't go their way. And it's not like one of those you could sit there and break it down 100 different ways where the Avalanche could have won. It just didn't go their way. It's hey, no team goes 82-0, and this is one of those instances where it's just like, hey, it just wasn't in the cards. You forget about this game. When you get the end of the season, no one will ever bring up that Minnesota game. Ever.
No. It's not like that. But and having said that and feeling like that kind of leads into one of the first questions. And this comes from Matt, and it says, are you as confident the Avs can go all the way as you were back in 2022? And my answer to that is like, it's a good question, because I'm never overly confident of walking around like, oh, nobody's going to beat us, because it's the NHL playoffs. They're insanely difficult. And I'll tell you this, I wasn't as confident in the 2022 team is a fantastic team. They won the cup. They went on a run that you rarely see anymore. I was more confident in the team the year before.
Yeah.
That didn't get out of the second round. So it's I can be confident, and I am, but am I confident of like, we're just going to plow through the postseason? No, because it's usually never that way. But am I confident that I guess I'll phrase it this way. Am I confident that this team has a chance to go do that? Yes, I am that confident. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, to Matt's point, I agree with you, Chris. I don't think I've ever been confident. Like, I say it facetiously a couple times, like, give us the cup, but I've never felt like this team is winning the Stanley Cup. Not even in 22. I do, though, draw a parallel to. I remember looking at that roster, the 2022 team after the trade deadline, and being like, "This is a pretty good roster makeup. Like top to bottom, I pretty okay. I like the team's chances." And honestly, after the trade deadline, after the dust is settled, I have that same feeling. Like looking at this roster, you're like, you know what? This team is built for the playoffs. Like before the trade deadline, honestly, like before the Four Nations, you're kind of like looking at the roster and you're like, I probably said it on here a couple times, like wild card, it'd be nice to even get out of it. I did not feel good. You brought up the conversation, will the Avalanche just kind of coast to get to the playoffs to do better? I didn't think they had it in them. I did not like the roster DNA and construction and how they were playing. Now I do. I feel like they are built for a push, not just get there and survive. Like they could push and be a heartbreaker.
Definitely. And you know, that's the difficulty of this sport is like you could say that about a handful of other teams too. So that's where the confidence is like I don't think that they're just going to get, you know, rolled over, but I don't know if they're going to roll over anybody either. It's just there's a lot of good teams like there is every year going into a playoff. But I agree with you. I think they're a much more balanced team. They don't have anywhere near as many holes, if any, that they had prior to the Four Nations tournament and now after the trade deadline. Like you feel good. You feel good about your goalie situation. You feel good that your superstars are doing superstar things. You feel good that your centers down the middle are all solid. There's nothing to dislike about this Avalanche team. It's just, can they put it all together? And it's matchups. And you see matchup, like look at Chicago. Chicago was matched up well with you. They're not a playoff team, thank God. But that's what it's about. Matchups, goaltending, and everything that comes with that.
And I'll just give a little sparkle of glimmer of hope for those. In 2022, we were sitting there saying, is this a McDermott game? As the guy that was scratched and was not needed. Now you say, is this a Miles Wood game? Like, are we doing LOC, Kiviranta? Like, those are names that you know what they're going to add. This isn't just a big guy to go out there and fight. So that should give you, like, this shows you the depth of this squad.
It's a good point because I mentioned the matchups. And if you need to match up differently with the team, you have guys that you can insert. I mean, yeah, definitely Miles Wood, Jimmy Vesey too.
Oh yeah.
So you have different looks that you can give teams based on what their looks that they're giving you. This is a question from Coy, and he said this might be a completely crazy idea, but the Central is going to be a complete bloodbath. Would you consider the Avs to drop to the first wild card spot to face Vegas in the first round, then hopefully tap into a weaker Pacific? I'll let you answer that, and then I'll give you my take on it.
I don't think the Avs could intentionally lose or navigate their way into that spot. Two, I don't think that is that favorable of a matchup. I don't like Vegas. Like, I know the Central is rough. Yes, I get it. But you've seen the Central. You know the Central. Vegas is still kind of a question mark. You have tape, but you don't have that much hands-on experience. And I kind of would rather lean towards the Central and see what you can do. I'd rather play and fight for the rest of the regular season and then take what you get instead of try and play like navigator and look for favorable matchups, because I don't think that's going to benefit you either way. And I don't think that really could fall in their hands.
Go tell someone like Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar, even Jared Bednar, lose these games. Yeah. So we have a more favorable. I wouldn't even call it favorable. I mean, like I said, it's the NHL playoffs. It's difficult no matter who you're playing. They're not going to go out to lose games, to fall into a wild card spot, because then you're just messing with the juju of this team. And you know what I mean? Like, you're telling them not to play well. Or, so how, and this is a team that needs to play well and have some cohesion and kind of figure out the growing pains with all these new guys. How does that benefit anybody? I completely understand what Cody is saying. Yeah. Not Cody, Coy is saying here, but I don't think pro athletes are built that way. And when I hear it all the time when it comes to the draft, should guys, should teams phone it in so they get a better draft. Pro athletes don't care about a college student. They don't. The front office might, but the guys that are on the court, the guys that are on the field, the guys that are in the ice are playing for who's there on that bench, not some kid that they're going to draft. They don't care about that stuff. So, and they're also playing for their next contract too. So you start phoning it in, and how's that look to other teams who might be your suitors in the offseason? It kind of doesn't work that way. Again, I get what he's saying from a matchup standpoint, but I'm with you. I'll take my chances because I'm more familiar with the teams in the Central than I am in any other division. So yeah, like I have more tape on them, have them playing us than I do against Vegas or Edmonton or anybody else. And it only makes you stronger if you can go and beat those teams early in the playoffs, and then kind of methodically make your way through it. And you've gone up against the best. That's what you want. If you want to be the best, go up against the best any and all the time.
Yeah.
That's where I'm standing with that. It's kind of a follow-up to this. This one is from Cody, and it's about the remaining schedules. So let's get our first break in here, and then we'll come back and we'll do that. We got a lot more to get to from listener questions. Good stuff coming up too. All right, let's hear from Trade Coffee. So if you're like myself and you're like Kyle, mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee. If you get tired of settling for grocery store brands and that they're just not cutting it, you can turn to Trade. Why? Because the coffee over at Trade is absolutely next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. And whether you're new to coffee or know exactly what you like, they will handpick the perfect match for you. And I said, whenever we do a read for Trade, I'll pick out a new coffee for you to try. I think you're going to like this one, Kyle. Again, we're music guys. This coffee, the roaster is called the Roasted Record. And on every label, it just says coffee and vinyl. Who doesn't love a cup of coffee playing a nice little vinyl record in your 1-bedroom apartment? Who doesn't like that stuff?
I got a stack of vinyls right there. My coffee cup right here.
So this one is called the 33 blend. It's a harmonious blend features a caramel sweetness yielding to juicy notes of strawberry and citrus as the cup cools. What are we doing here? What is this mad scientist's coffee that we're doing that has 2 different flavor profiles based on how hot it is?
Welcome to the future.
I think we got to go get that one. So right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off of your first order at drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/lockedonnhl for 40% off of your first order. Once again, drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. Also brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here. Kyle, get excited. And FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Because right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 in bonus bets to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and who is cutting down the nets. And if Kyle had to pick, that'd be the Auburn Tigers. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, so jumping back into some of these listener questions, we had one. This one is from Cody. It says, looking at the remaining schedule of Winnipeg, Dallas, and Colorado, do you think the Avs could still get first in the division? The quick answer to that is no. I think Winnipeg is way too far out, and they would have to just totally tank while you don't lose anything.
Yeah, it basically have to be perfect.
Yeah, that's too far out. Dallas, I think that's a tough one, but let me see what they're. I just want to get the perfect updated standings here. here's the thing with Dallas. They've had games in hand all season long.
Yeah.
And they still do. They still have 2 games in hand, and they are 5 points up on you. So, the game this weekend is a big one. It's feasible, but I brought up the remaining strength of schedules, and this is on Tankathon. So the Avalanche have, let's see, they are 11th. This goes from most difficult to easiest. So they're 11th on there. I thought they had an easier schedule. I thought I saw somewhere that they had one of the easier schedules for the remainder of the season. According to this, their the strength of schedule from their opponents is 557.
That probably shifted at the trade deadline.
I'm sure it changes. Once you get rid of, like after you play, like Chicago. Okay, now you reassess and what's left, obviously, right? So they're 11th on here. Dallas is 19th. So they have a little bit easier schedule than the Avalanche, and Winnipeg is 8th. So Winnipeg does have a slightly more difficult schedule than
Cry me a whipper. It's not happening.
Yeah, no, I think it's too difficult. And the thing of it with Dallas is like, yeah, if you catch Dallas, the only thing that switches there is home ice.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal. I get that. It's a big deal. But I think we're pretty much locked into a Stars Avs first round. The only thing that needs to be shored up is who has the home ice. It's Dallas right now. They still have 2 games in hand on you. It's going to be a challenge. There's a lot of games to go, but anything's possible. I don't see it happening. I think you got your 1, 2, 3, and 4 here right now.
Yeah, and it doesn't really change much of the complexion of the playoffs other than hearing that dreaded goal song in Dallas less. But like I think honestly you're just surviving and thriving the rest of the way. Don't implode, stay healthy, get to the end. I mean, if you jump to second, cool. You're not catching first, but nothing really changes. So just stay the course.
Yeah. So I did that one for, on the bullet points, that's on third. I backed that up and did that one now because we have a handful of questions about contracts. And I can't lump them together because people threw out different names and I got to give them credit for it. One of them I absolutely love. I'm going to start with this. Has Kiviranta priced himself out of Colorado? You don't think of that. Like when you have like depth guys, you don't think like have they when you use that phrasing, it's usually for, your top guys. But it goes for everybody. And it goes for depth guys too. Kiviranta's having a heck of a season. Is he around after this year?
Yes. I think he's here. I don't think he's priced himself out because Kiviranta, almost has the same path as Nichushkin. Dallas gave up on them, and Colorado picked him up. And I don't think Kiviranta could find the same success on another roster. I think this is your prototypical Avalanche effect. He's found his role and where he's expected to play, and I don't think he could find that kind of footing anywhere else. I just don't think he can, and I think he will do a team friendly just to stay in Colorado. He's having his best season ever, but he's been here a little bit.
So it's tough because it's one of those things where where's his mindset at? Is it what you are saying in the Jonathan Drouin, like this is the best situation for me? And obviously I've played my best hockey here, or is it my confidence level is up now. I feel I can go anywhere and play to this level, to this caliber with another team. And if that's the case, there might be a team that's out there that's looking at what he's doing this year and throw him some more money. And I'm sorry, but we all say I go back to your top line guys who, if they want to chase the money, they're going to go after who gives them the most money. That is true for depth guys too, because they're making $1-2 million a year. So if there's somebody that throws him $3 million, $3.5 million, he's going to go take that because he has a much more limited time to go make as much money as possible and not get the $10-12 million a year. So that will come into play. And if the Avs can't do that, I haven't went into a deep dive on like the off season yet. We're in the middle of a season, but if the Avs don't have that, if the Avs can't match a crazy offer from another team, I think he's gone. I do. And he's playing that well where there's another team who maybe overreaches for him and says, hey, you had a great year there. Come over here. Here's a little bit more money than they're offering you. Guys in his situation need to, they're going to want to make as much money as possible. And this is his unrestricted free agent contract. This is where they cash in the most. I hope he stays because he's doing great. But I don't know.
Yeah, if he wants the money like San Jose, Philly, those kind of teams, they'll pay. But if he wants to continue, if he's is enjoying playing hockey, you stay in Colorado.
We got a bunch on Brock Nelson. Vargar definitely asked, will Brock Nelson sign an extension before he even plays a playoff game with the Avs? And there were other Brock Nelson questions. Just, are the Avs going to sign him? Are they going to get him under contract going forward? It's a good question. To Vargar's question of do they sign him before the playoffs even start? I guess that's always a possibility. And I think that they want to kind of treat this like the Mackenzie Blackwood when they inherited him, watch him for a little while, make sure like it's the good fit. I thought they went really quick in signing Blackwood.
Yeah,
really quick. I think they do the same with Nelson. And again, with any contract, the numbers have to match up. He said no to a 3-year deal with the Islanders. I couldn't nail down what the AAV was. Somebody said it was up towards 7, which is a little bit high, but I don't know. Like, it's all term. It's all number. He's 33 years old. He's going to be 34 years old right at the start of next season. You're not really going to give a guy that's 34 a 4 or 5 year contract. I just don't think you're going to do that. Is he okay? He said no to the Islanders for 3. That doesn't necessarily mean he'll say no to the Avalanche at 3 years. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I honestly kind of twofold. I would turn down 3 years in the Isle. So good on you, Brock Nelson.
Yeah.
And 2, like, really, what's the rush? Like,
just to get it done before he hits the market.
But again, yes, he's been wonderful, but is this really what you want your future team to look like? And like this, you don't really do rentals. Now you have one. Do the rental. Go for the cup. Like there's really no rush. Like if he was maybe 26, 27, 28.
Oh, yeah.
Then we're having this conversation. Now we're talking about somebody that's going to be 34 with the cap going up. What's the rush? What are we doing here? Just because we have him doesn't mean you have to have him forever.
No, but I mean, do I think they would want him for another year or two? Yeah, like you're still. I mean, he's still definitely can produce at that age. But again, he said no to 3 years. I don't think he's just going to say yes to a 1 year or 2 year contract with the Avalanche. And you said, if he was 26, 27 years old, the Avs tried that. They tried that with Casey Middlestat. It didn't work. So, and you're going out, and if it is a rental, unless you have a plan for who's to replace him, you're right back in the same situation you were for since Kadri left. And now we're back to finding another 2C.
But
so
the only thing that I don't like about it is like the age a little bit. And just, I don't want you sign this deal and he doesn't stay healthy through the playoffs. And now you're holding on to this. And you're like, now what are we going to do? Like you gotta play a little bit smarter. And again, you put this team together to win the Stanley Cup. We could play front office after the season's over. Right. You know what your team looks like this year. And honestly, Brock Nelson yes, he's wonderful. Yes, he's great. But I'm not too worried about what the long term looks like. I want to see what he does for the team this year. We've only seen him for 3 games? Yeah, no, and I think they're going to do that. But I mean, he's been in the league for 12 years, so they know what he should be able to give you. If you want to squeeze a little bit more out of that for 2 or 3 more years, I think I would be okay with it. But because you have your other centers
I shouldn't say locked up. Nathan McKinnon, you do. Coyle is there for another year, and Drury is there for another year. So again, do you want the 2C being the outlying question and needing to patchwork your 2C or not? It's going to be an interesting, contract and how much he wants and for how long. It'll be interesting to see. There was one more question about UFAs. They asked which UFA do you try to keep after next season, Lehkonen or Nashis? Well, I got to amend that a little bit because Lehkonen's under contract for 2 more years after this year, where Nashis is just next year. But to answer the question, will they be able to sign both of those guys, Nashis and Lehkonen, because that's your top line? It helps the Avalanche that the cap is rising each one of those years. So I think they're going to try like heck to keep that line together. Would not surprise me, because Nashis right now is 26, Lehkonen is 29. So he'll be 30, 31, 32-ish when that contract is up. Again, not horrible. So that's a problem for a few years from now. But if it keeps going this way, I think they're going to want to keep those guys together.
Yeah, I would say both. If I had to choose either or, I'd say Lehkonen probably.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, it's a tough question.
If you're telling me like you can only have one, I mean, we've had a small but enough sample size of Martin Necas where we see how well he plays with Nathan McKinnon. Not to say Lehkonen doesn't, but man,
Lehkonen's so clutch though.
That's
a factor that it's like he's quickly becoming like Mr. Avalanche. I really like Lehkonen.
I mean, everything he does, he's a fantastic forechecker. He's everything. Oh man. I'm not going to, I don't want to think about it. I'm going to lose sleep.
Both.
I'm going to lose sleep over trying to answer that. So, all right. More to get to. So we will get to the Simpsons question. Just that's a good one. Stick with us. We got more to do right after this. All right. Hearing from Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budget app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. It's an all-in-one convenience app. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code is LOCKEDONNHL for half off of an entire year. Go check them out. All right. We had a question from our boy Kenny. So he asked, which Av would you take back in a heartbeat? One past player and one current player. So start with we'll go timeline wise. So start with an old player way back in yesteryear. If you could bring them back for whatever reason, even if they're in their 60s to play, basically who's like one of your favorite players that got away, I think is how this question is answered.
Adam Deadmarsh.
That's mine.
Really? Yeah.
Totally mine.
Yeah. I think there was a lot more meat on that bone and could have really provided a lot more to the Avs. I understand why they had to do what they had to do, but Adam Deadmarsh is always going to be the one that got away from me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was really upset when they traded him. Yep. I understood it, but yeah, and I was even 20 years old when he was traded. But so like when you're so invested, when like you're like a teenager, you feel like a member of your family just moved out. So I didn't like it, but whatever. What about now? Somebody that's still playing that they got rid of. It's probably a stupid question for you, but
that'd be my boy Nas.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like there was more to that story. Money kind of got in the way, but I feel like there was more to that story, and I think he would probably say the same.
You know who I would love back on this team? Andre Burakovsky. I would. You're shaking your head.
That stunned me to the core. I would
Yeah.
have never in a million years picked that as your.
Because when he was rolling, he was tough. You just but he would have those drop offs.
That's what scares me.
Yeah, like he would go on a run where you're like, oh, this guy has it figured out, and then you wouldn't hear from him for 10 games. But maybe he just needed more time with. He wasn't there for very long.
No.
And if he hung around and, maybe that evened out, who knows? But he was exciting. I mean, you never knew where the puck was going when he took a shot. But man, when he scored, he made it look good. So I'd like him back. I wouldn't mind him
Honorable
back.
mention might have been Erod, but honestly,
that's a good one.
Hasn't been the same. Like he got a cup, but it's not the same Erod that the Avalanche version, and I miss him. So.
Yeah, no, I can see that one. And if it wasn't for Eric Johnson just coming back, I wonder if we would have said Eric Johnson.
It's true.
So this is from Craig. He says the NHL is always wanting to expand their audience by doing global series games. If you had your choice for a location for the next global series, where would it be?
Sydney, Australia.
They played preseason over there, I think last year. I don't think it was, or was it this preseason? No, I think it was this preseason.
Yeah, it was this preseason.
I think it was the Kings. Maybe it was last because maybe it was the Kings and the Coyotes that went, or it could have been the Kings and the Sharks. I know it was the Kings. I don't remember who the other team was. But maybe that was a test run. Like if you're doing preseason games over there, you might do a little test run.
They have it. I think if you're going global, I would think in front of that Opera House in Sydney would be cool. Beautiful. But they have a really good hockey scene that has been trying to get going and get off the ground. And I really think like bringing the NHL would kind of legitimize the efforts that are going on in Australia for hockey. Mm-hmm. And anytime you can grow the game of hockey, I am all on board. So Sydney.
And like all of what you just said is true for where I would put it. And that's in London.
Ooh.
They have a really kind of like underground like hockey fan base that just gets overshadowed by like all the soccer and all that stuff. Like, but they even a good friend of mine has a good friend who lives in London. He's obsessed with the sport, absolutely obsessed with it. And he's like he has gotten so many friends of his to buy into the sport. And he's like, it really is kind of, I want to say taking over London and the country, but it's more people are really kind of tuning to it. The ratings are going up over there. You have some really cool areas that you could play a game there for sure. I mean, it can be indoors, but
Jay with Locked On Jackets.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He lives over there. Yeah, exactly. So I think that'd be a good spot. So, and then we got Madam Battle Axe. She threw out 3. She asked us if we listen to the Spit and Chicklets podcast with the Landeskog interview. Good interview if you want to go over there and listen to it. I mean, if you really every single day are following this team, I don't think there's anything new there, but it's just nice to hear him kind of like drill home the point that he is going to try to make this thing happen at some point. But he was asked about Rantanen, and as just a whole, she asked, do you believe that Mikko Rantanen was really blindsided and wanted to stay in Denver? Oh, I do. I 100% do. And the reason why I feel that way is the one guy whose word I take as law is Elliot Friedman. And Elliot Friedman has said he was completely blindsided by the trade from the Avalanche to Chicago.
The Canes.
The Canes. He actually did go to Chicago for a millisecond.
His money did.
But to the Canes, it seems like he definitely was. He did not see it coming. So yes, I think he definitely was.
I don't think it as so much blindsided, but I think he might have known he may have took too hard of a stance.
But I think he even in taking that hard of a stance, I think he thought it'll still work itself out. I have to take a hard stance. This is what I'm asking for. This is how negotiations work. We go back and forth. I've played my entire career here. They drafted me. It'll work itself out. And I think when the Avalanche crossed that line of like the point of no return, he didn't see it coming.
You know what? I'm not going to theorize on the Miko soap opera. In the off season, we'll get all the details. We'll get back to General Moosebittle.
Yep.
And we'll make it happen.
And then she asked, what are your thoughts on bringing back all the small things? Do you think we need to have something?
Yes.
But would you bring that back or no?
Absolutely. 1,000%. I think it needs to come back just because it's a good, it's always synonymous. You always go back to, like if I hear Gloria, I still think of the St. Louis Blues.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. It's like, it's a moment in time, right? So you don't keep it up and then it kind of loses its value after a little while. You now when you hear it, you always think of that moment in time where the Avalanche won the cup and that was like all the rage and people looked forward to it. And yeah, it would still get people going, but now that you removed it, now it's on another level because you removed it. Now it's up here instead of just like, oh, that's the thing that the Avalanche do for the last 10 years. And I think the other thing, like, I'm all for bringing that back, bring it back in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because that's when people would be like, oh, here, like, and don't announce it, just start playing it. And people will start going crazy. And if you want to do it for the playoffs, fine. But the other thing about it is that happened naturally. That happened like organically. It wasn't forced on anybody to be like, this is what we're going to do. So she's right. Like, do we need something? Yes. But I don't know what that is because I want it to be normal and just happen naturally.
Bring back the Whip by Loxley. That's their best goal song we ever had. Bring that back.
I'm for stuff like that. But for playoffs, bring things back that you haven't heard in a while. That just, that the nostalgia factor and all that stuff, that's what it's about. But I wouldn't bring it back full time. At first I was mad that they took all small things away, but then I'm like, you know what? It means more now.
It belongs to the museum.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And her final question, maybe the most important question we're getting in this entire episode. Are we Family Guy, American Dad, or Simpsons type of guys? My answer is South Park. But for these three, go ahead.
Mine, it's a no-brainer, no question. I am a Simpsons freak. I quote The Simpsons all day long. I could sit here and just think of bits and just laugh. From steamed hams to I could talk, I could sing.
So I mean, I remember when The Simpsons came out, and they were just a pop culture like icons, and I can't sit here and say like I've kept up with them over the years. What have they been in for 30 years or something at this point now? They're the gold standard, right? They are I had the Bart Simpson shirt when I was a kid, like played the Simpsons video game, like loved them. But as I got older, I kind of just like gravitated away from them and moved over to Family Guy. And I was that dude, like watching Family Guy episodes on Adult Swim at 1 o'clock in the morning, laughing my head off. And even with that, I've kind of gotten away from Family Guy recently, but my constant is South Park. I watch every single episode of South Park without fail, and to this day, laugh incredibly hard at South Park. It's such a creative show.
Yeah, I saw Simpsons movie day one in the theaters. I'm still Simpsons. Like when I was in college, while I was typing out my work, I had the Simpsons just random episodes playing.
They're legends.
Oh, they're so good.
They are legends. So, all right, everyone, that will wrap it up for today. We will be back tomorrow. We got a Friday game, so against Calgary. So we're going to talk about it, and we'll do that tomorrow. So tune into that. But for this, thank you for making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciate it. He's Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow, where Sidney Crosby is 24 hours closer to being a Colorado Avalanche. He's a Simpsons fan.
Don't.